all over. Look at what you put out.
Live is the conference committee on some bill, big bill. It's May 6th, continuing the work that we have started in prior conference committees. And I have some information to share and some proposals that I can bring up.
You can go first.
Okay, I don't know what's the best order, so I'll just go from the top here.
Is it in one of these sheets that we should be looking at?
It's definitely in a sheet. It's in the AG's office.
Okay.
We'd like to keep the positions, but we would move the funding from our 300 to 150K. Because with 150K, we think we can stack. 300K would have allowed us to move to all the counties that don't have it. 150 would allow us to go to the 2 counties that don't have the diversion. Yeah, but we think the positions are critical. And I know there's an effort to try to cut positions, and we're trying to do that other places. We didn't think these ones were where we would want to do.
Question. We have E200, there are positions. One home repair and one is solicitor general.
Yeah,
Then in 201, there's the 300,000. And in 200, there's also 230. So are we talking about the
300,000.
the 300 you want to offer to cut that in half?
Right.
The 150. Okay, we'll take that under advisement.
Yeah, but that's in.
Yep.
So we did have some information, so I'm going to switch between proposals and information. We had some information on the skilled nursing facilities supporting their
Yes.
work. Did you get this thing? Okay. So this is just some of the information, and then we already had.
Yeah. This is what we got before, on
Yeah.
what they did
What they did with 500
years.
Last year.
this current year.
Last year.
Oh,
But we agree with you about having a more detailed report and evaluation, and like actually where can there be and we're asked HS if they have information about estimated savings from this work. And then but specifically you have that language in for next year. So
you would propose some language.
so we would include some language that we're hoping JFO would work on. Senator Westman's gonna work on that as well to say what the report would be and what the more specific evaluation criteria would be of the program. So that's that. Has anybody given you the PCB memo?
Yes. Is that with the chart, the colored chart on the back?
Oh,
I got it.
Not colored. They probably gave the House members the colored version. Special.
There's a separate sheet. The Trevor
filling out the
Okay.
number.
So,
But this has a table of some of the.
right, and he actually had something even more than this, which was very helpful as well. So
Yeah, maybe he got more information. This is just when the issue came up
in your committee.
in the committee and we heard that there hadn't been a lot of information. We got this memo.
Okay. So that is indeed reversions. No, is it D? Yes, line 41. And I think we'd be willing to accept putting the 4 million back in. Good.
Great. On the VPIC,
Yes.
got some more information about the work that the state can do since 3 of them are classified employees, that HR can do a market factor adjustment. So we want, and they could just increase their pay either as a RFR or just this market factor adjustment if their analysis shows that the market rate should be higher. And so instead of just adding the money in, we'd like to propose that we add language basically directing HR to do this analysis. And if they just through the regular HR, state employee HR process, sees that there's value or the market factors makes it justified that they do it through the regular HR process instead of us just appropriating the money. And it's kind of what Senator Harrison said this morning about, it's not really a study, but it's moving it forward with the existing HR program.
Senator, there is a senator.
Senator Harrison, yes.
There is one, but it's not you.
They're available.
And she, but yeah. So, all right, that's interesting. You know, our concern is not so much that they're going to go to Wall Street, but as we've learned, as we chatted this morning too, the competition is with like the state of Maine
Right.
pension or the other. We are woefully below those areas. So I don't know if a market factor study is going to look at that or whether they just stay in Vermont. Do you have any sense of?
What if we reduce that amount to like 150? Happy to work on the language, but
It's implemented at the state's discretion
right, I mean, it doesn't mean.
to retain and recruit us.
But, we, especially in this environment, we have to have our A game to make sure we don't go backwards.
I mean, that's what the program is set up for. It's retention of current employees. If retention of current employees is jeopardized by the limits of the compensation plan when compared to appropriate labor market rates for that position. So I would assume that would include other states. Work.
Did you get any sense of how long that would take?
Did not.
We have the information, but our understanding is that we're way on the bottom end, like the 10th percentile. And some movement might bring us up to the 30th percentile, which still puts us at risk, but less risk if we stay where we are. So we're just wondering.
Well, we could do both.
We could. We're just afraid that we're gonna be
Right.
slow.
We could do the
too slow.
150
Right,
and then also ask for the market
right.
factor adjustment analysis.
Yeah, and maybe we could find out how long this would take. Maybe it could be done quickly. It just seems like if we have a process for state employees to have this done, why wouldn't we do that instead of just doing a direct appropriation? Do we set us up for a precedent that every time a state employee feels like they're under the market that they come to their legislators and not go through the
Totally
Yeah.
sensitive to that. We're just looking at timing and can't come back, next year, and maybe next year might be too late, in terms of reporting back on what we gotta do.
right.
Maybe strings could be attached to that language as approved by HR or something. But the money would be there. And let's also remember, this is not general fund. This is coming out of
Right.
the pension fund, which is there. Hopefully, we're spending it wisely to actually improve the pension fund.
Right. Now, I'd be supportive of a compensation based on performance, but they said they were interested in that at this time. Well, let's leave it open, just if you don't mind, just so we can see how long it would
Yeah.
take. But
And well, maybe, and so could we have the language that, yeah, I mean, and we could get, hopefully this would be very quick and we could get it, say, in December, so that a budget adjustment changes could be made to be taken at that time.
yeah, and I'm maybe not opposed to, not Senator Harrison, but Representative Harrison, the suggestion of we say we do this, but maybe we have money there that could be used. Well, I guess they're taking out the pension, so we don't need to set money aside.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
It would be in the pension. All right, let's find out how long those things usually take.
Okay.
Would have to give them spending authority to
Yes.
allocate that.
So maybe we could give them spending authority up to what happens. And I'm sure Amy has people that she knows in HR that will tell us what's happening there.
Right.
On the sheriff's transport deputies, well,
Mhm.
we think it's critical to have professional transport deputies. I think the murder case that was thrown out, the
Oh, yeah.
non-transport deputy that did the transport, that interviewed the accused, caused that whole case to be thrown out, which I know in my community, people are pretty upset about. So,
Yeah.
but we're willing to move that from 1 to 2 positions as for the sheriffs of the transport deputies. Do you want
I'm
to?
not sure.
What I said, 1 to 2?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, I meant 2 to 1.
So they have 7 instead of 6.
They, and I looked at the request was 6 new positions.
Well, they had a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they have 2 positions that are open, which
Right.
would allow them to add to another one too.
Add one more.
You can think about it.
Yeah,
We looked closer at the Defender General's asks. We did not see anything in there that we felt would cut the Addison office is not new office, other than they just got their landlord kicked them out of the place they were at, and so they have to move into a new office. And it's not a lot of money that they're asking
Right.
just to fit up an office there. The Orleans office, they're saving money moving into this different building. So they felt like they were doing the responsible thing
mhm,
to move to the new office there. There's the 30,000 for IT servers. I haven't heard back, but I asked, like, is there movement on that? But they said if they had contracted for that cloud storage, it would be a lot more. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they said that what they thought also was a prudent thing to do. And the contract increases for the private attorneys, they also have a 14,000 case backlog, and they're having difficult finding private attorneys take the contracts because the pay is so low. So this would allow them to increase the pay by the $58,000 or $57,851. And then the training. So we did not see.
we have got some things. I mean, I would be willing to keep the one time for the AGs. I'm not convinced that we need the base. They chose to drop the 60,000 in training funds during COVID. They chose to drop that.
Yeah, my understanding they did it because they were asked to try to save some money, and they didn't think it was going to be a permanent. They're like, well, we can't meet in person, so we could get that up. Had he known, he would have been not
Oh,
holding
okay,
it,
sure.
of course, and I think if it's an issue about base or one time, you'd be flexible on the question. You want to move this 60,000 to,
Well, it could all go to one time, but I don't know if we want to do all.
yeah,
Not sure we're there yet.
okay.
It's feeling like we're not doing a good job of reducing a little bit here. Okay,
The state biz tech exchange program that
yeah,
you received some information on. So we got the language from the bill, but H.493 there was language when the program was created that was in session law. We don't know if this puts the program in statutory language, but like creates the program in statute, which seems much more permanent than we're talking about. So
right.
I don't think it's this language, but this does provide all the details on the program.
Okay.
Judson.
Okay, you can look at that, yeah, because this would,
And also we could,
It's a lot of money.
it's a lot
Yeah.
of money.
And we're already starting from a place that some think was too high, that we need their support of. And so we add, $750,000. It's a lot. And this was, what little bit we know about it was set up for our ARPA as a one-time and continued it for another year, I guess, last year or something. But we had the money, and now all of a sudden we don't. So we're just, we're looking for a path forward. I mean, everybody could do small business technical assistance. It's just, it's a lot of money.
yeah. And, trying to do it as a statewide program was the reason to have it at a higher amount. We could reduce it a little bit down to $750,000 to save a little money.
I think we have to reduce, if we do it at all, it needs to be a lot more than that.
Okay,
This was a one-time program for a set of circumstances that we have now moved beyond. And there's plenty of, I ran an RDC for 9 years. I know how they work.
yeah,
This was a nice to have that they got for a period of time where they could do some, work helping somebody do an audiobook or, whatever their website, but there are those things that are available still. And then they have this free services of the small business development centers that work hand in hand with the RDCs and other things like that. So there are a lot of resources available. They aren't always grants. And
Right.
I just, in this time when we could be seeing major cuts from the federal government coming down that are really going to harm Vermonters, I just think we have to think about what's nice to have versus what we really need to have.
understood. So that was our proposal on that. This skilled nursing program language, we already did that, and we are going to run the language about the report back.
Okay.
The urban search and rescue program, we're willing to go to the House position on the money, but we want to keep it in the base because we feel like if we want people to save our lives during emergencies, we need to have an ongoing program to do that. So I think the House position was 450.
Yeah.
So you would lower it to 450, but you wanted.
Yes.
Okay, we will discuss that.
We didn't talk about this, but I have it on my sheet to talk about, we have some language in our bill about the delay of some of the base expenditures till November 1st. There was some discussion about also doing that for one-time appropriation. So we just wanted to let you know that we agreed with that.
The concept of doing some
Yeah.
one-times, yeah. We are very concerned about moving the 2% increase to a November 1st. We leave millions of dollars of Medicaid money, federal money on the table for the organizations whose help we need, especially in these times. So that's part of why I talked to you about, let's make some one-times be delayed, but that we can never get it back. We can't go retroactive. And, if we lose it later, we lose it later. But if we lose it before we even get it, I think that's really going to hurt our communities.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I guess I also, in thinking about it, in the context of other employees, well, all state employees get an automatic COLA, nursing home personnel get an automatic COLA. And this kind of singles out other providers that kind of are agents of the state, do this. And I was uncomfortable with that. Just in principle, but I think the Medicaid issue is important too.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the Medicaid aspect. Well,
So the concept of where we can move things to later, because we are worried about what's happening, but this isn't where I would choose to do it because we would be losing so much other money, so much other funding. But I think there are places in the one time, we haven't gone through the one
Yeah.
time with that that we could do that.
okay, and it might be that we could do October 1st. There's a
Mhm.
question of whether, because that's when the Fed should have their budget. But
Yeah.
And that's quarter.
I know, and so they can divide by whatever, 3/4 or 70s. Okay, so we should be looking at one time so we can do that.
So we did have Secretary Saunders in our committee today to talk about the $4 million. I think we're okay with their proposal of giving them the authority to spend the $4 million, but this question about the language and the language that she provided, she also provided an Excel spreadsheet, but it didn't come through, so we'll get back to you. But the question, I think, for the House is the language that she supplied today that gives more detail, and there's spreadsheet that has the money, but each position is $150,000. And it's 1.5 million for the two contracts on here, plus $500,000 for the last thing. So so you guys can digest this, and then I also think some of this language might be better in the education transformation bill and not in the budget.
Mm,
So that's because there's some kind of policy questions in here, I think.
okay.
Okay.
And is that now in Senate Finance?
Yes.
And if you could send, okay, so like, or is it on your committee page?
It is.
Must be on your committee page.
Yeah.
Because I can also send it to our chair of House Education and Ways and Means so that they can see what. Because it's obviously out of our body.
Because as you probably were not surprised, you didn't want to have the language in where they have to go to JFO if that could be avoided.
Mhm. Well. Okay,
So
our
that's,
joint fiscal committee, yeah,
yeah, Joe,
okay.
did you have a question?
Well, maybe I don't. I was just thinking, does it make any sense to, like we're doing with H91, to put the money in the education bill? So,
Right, we could take it out of the budget, and just have it all
I mean, as long as you don't spend it twice.
in there. Yeah,
Mm,
Just, I'm not wed to that. I just,
yeah,
some things just pop into my head and I should think about them. Talk with the chair before I.
That's okay. So you-
No, I had,
That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Just
I'm
put the
just
whole thing in
thinking,
the.
they
in
might
the-
be in a
yeah.
better position to understand what they really need.
yeah,
So,
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Tiff? You'd be okay if we use the whole?
Many thoughts. No, I mean.
I think that's actually not a bad
Sure.
idea. Let's just keep the whole thing together,
Whatever,
part of a whole.
One of the,
Yeah.
this is 5 new positions that they're asking for.
Out of the 4 million. Not in addition.
Oh, the positions now have to be,
In the budget, right?
At the end of the-
they can be in the bill.
Okay.
Which is probably better.
It's probably to just keep the whole thing in the bill.
What bill?
The education.
Education.
Yeah.
And then we could, the language that was in your bill on that too, we could
Right.
say 1 page.
Would be our end of session present.
So that's just,
So we should probably check and but make sure that
yeah,
that we think it's doable.
right. I was going to talk
Yeah.
to Senate Finance folks. I mentioned it quickly to one of them, but I'll talk to Chair.
The bill
Okay.
will be coming to you.
And it will come to us. So we said we could do it in appropriations, but since there is some overlap, with, I think, policy, what they want the agency to do, it makes more sense to be part of that bigger conversation, at least
Right.
when I read it.
Right. And it never came to us because there wasn't any money. The money was, we didn't get H4 before. I don't think we did.
I don't,
No, there wasn't.
because it was, we put the money in the BAA because that came to us, the governor had done his budget and asked. for it.
Okay.
The only other thing is we have some language changes that are technical in nature.
Really technical in nature. That Jen Carby drafted up for us, so it's real improving the language that's currently in the bill.
Okay.
And then I have another suggestion after those. But some of these relate to signing up for the exchange, so in an emergency situation, so that gives more latitude to allow for that sign up another month. And then some relates to folks on SSDI, SSI. And then the other one is eligibility for premium tax credits. But it's really improvements, technical improvements in the language.
So you can look at it now.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
see what you
Well, we're
think.
supposed to meet again at 4, so we can have time to
Yeah.
chat with it.
And then there's another one, I don't have the language for it yet, and it's in the 1100s. As you know, the UVM and Town Care Board have a settlement in progress
Right.
with $11 million to be appropriated to primary care. The language that's currently there includes AHS as possible as a pass-through for that money. And we knew it was a placeholder, that language would be placeholder. So I talked with Green Mountain Care Board, and it probably makes sense rather than have some bureaucratic process, simply to have the board report back on how that money is being distributed for primary care. Then that will let us know if there's any duplication for the use of funds. So $11 million going to a specific primary care or type of primary care. We will know that if we already have that in the budget, could be a duplication. It might allow for us during BAA to take that $11 million and put it someplace else similar, in a healthcare, primary care, use, substance use disorder, something like that. So that language I do not have. It's a change to what's currently in the budget. And it'll take, I'll get the section for you. Take a look at it. But it's a neat thing because what it does is it frees up some money for us,
For other things.
for me.
Okay.
Also, I forgot to point out in that Secretary Saunders' testimony is language that they're suggesting on the adult basic ed question.
The don't let.
Yeah, which I think is maybe different, although I don't know if I've seen, because House Ed was gonna,
We have some language now for that, right? We need to get that out. It's basically what the House did. Actually, Justin, the House did earlier this year with 2 words that are changed. And that's what seemed to be what everybody was happy with. I think we got that from Chair Markov.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have that for you
okay,
to show you what. And the idea is basically keeping it the same and then having next year to finally fix it as we done.
The formula. Or the formula, previous.
And I don't know. It's not a new one.
Because.
It's either the current one or it's a former one. I don't know.
We asked them to come back, to recommend changes to the formula for
Right.
December. And part of the issue here is that the, Agency of Education had the formula that they were using, and they
Right.
changed that formula this
Yes.
year, which adversely affected some,
That's right.
some places.
So I think it was not the adversely affected one.
So that you would force them to go back to what they did before.
We'll check the
We'll get you the
language. I
language.
cannot tell you. We have
That
it.
would be just the question, because I think the providers were all surprised when the formula changed.
Right, because I think the AOE's interpretation of the formula was not what was intended when the formula was written. It's all, yes.
I think I've lost track of
Yes.
who intended what, or.
Yeah, so we have something that it sounds like people agree with.
I'll just say, the agency is suggesting basically don't hold off and have the Board of Education create new rules that can make it all align with statute.
We'll print out what we have.
That would be good.
We had talked this morning about the early childhood education apprenticeship program.
Yes,
So here's some information on that. You had asked 35 more students. You had asked how many more students this extra funding would
oh, yes,
provide. But they have a wait list now.
okay,
We've had money in this year, 25, that helped 25 students, but they had a wait list.
okay,
This would help get through this.
right,
So that's the information on
okay,
that program. So that's the list of things that we had to
Okay.
share
okay,
this week.
thank you. So we have some things that we could talk about too. So I'm looking at this sheet that we got this morning and using that for my reference. Know that we're removing We're removing them, yes.
I know, but I.
That's where I'm going.
Okay,
So line 6 is the S-125 and the 2 positions for the State Labor Relations Board. I would like to not add those 2 positions. I think there's going to be more work done next year. I've talked to the chair of House General, who's been taking testimony, and we feel like some work can be done next year on that.
And so there was,
So there is money and 2 new positions, and we have a lot of positions.
we were willing to get rid of one of those positions.
We'd like to get rid of both of them and
And
just
then-
work on it for next year.
Could there be language about this, setting it up for next year? Not that we can bind next year's legislature, but is that,
If you want to,
the request will come back one way or another.
Right.
It will, because it's coming from that board and our labor committee. You know, to work on it. They're not afraid to ask.
yeah, some,
so we just like to have that be dealt with next year.
well, we will move to 1 and we'll confer and talk about.
Yes, okay. And then down to lines 13 and 14, what I understand is that those are 2 net neutral, moved into the right place. So that seems like an easy one to say yes to. 225 and 225.2, the agriculture. So we can do those. In the interest of saving money, we are looking at line 19 and proposing that we return to the House position of 4.5% rate increase for the infants and toddlers.
Okay, good to know, but we're not.
Yep, so that's what we're proposing.
Okay,
Line 23 is the education adjusted payment. Those things are always happening, so that seems fine to just go with that information that you have.
Okay.
You guys all right with us accepting your position?
yes,
I think we agreed that we'll support the Fish and Wildlife position, line 25.
okay, great.
Cool. As the person who wants to save money, on line 27, I would like to add back the 25,000 to the Sustainable Jobs Fund. I'm really confused as to why their base funding got reduced by $25,000.
Well, my understanding, this was not the base, this would be increased their base by $25,000, which is a 10% increase. But their base is 250 and they want to go to 275, is that now?
But that was in the governor's budget,
There would be increase,
the increase in the governor's budget.
yeah,
So we liked it.
because it was in the governor's budget?
Well, no, because I think that, the work that they're doing, it wasn't a specific project, it's just that they're doing more work.
Yeah, and I did read.
So I think they made the case,
I did read the memo, which I think we had an understanding that it was for a specific new program. So we haven't conferred about that.
Okay, if you don't mind conferring that. And then we'll see. I got something from which council, let's see. Okay, I don't think I have an answer. We talked already this morning about line 30B 917, transportation, and we agreed, but just want to be sure that you get the right language. And I sent, right before we met, I sent you the
And in transportation conference committee today, chair wasn't there, but we talked about the language that is
It's probably.
possibly problematic,
Okay.
so we can either take it out in that conference committee or, because there's not language the language that's problematic isn't in the bill.
It's not in our bill. It's in the transportation bill.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay, all right. Well, as long as you promise to fix the language, so it's not.
Well, I gotta talk to
Except
the
to,
transportation chair here about it.
well, hopefully he wants to be legal.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, otherwise we approve but I just wanted to bring that up again. I think sure understood that. Then down in versions, line 44, we'll accept that, the years.
Okay.
6 million. We already did the continuous. And we haven't spent a lot of time on language yet, but line 49 in section E 100.3, the extending the reversion date for ARPA to December 31st made sense, given that we're originally going to be June 31st, but there was a delay because we don't have a budget adjustment act. So we are happy to agree with that. I think that's it for us for right now. What about? Not yet. To come.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's a few things.
Yeah,
And then if we meet again at 4, we may have more until night year.
yeah. Okay. Well, without any other questions or comments, we can adjourn.